carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
Welcome to Survival Dispatch News. It's April 2nd, 2026. I'm Chris Heaven, the CEO of Survival Dispatch. And again, tonight I'm joined by Green Beret and independent war correspondent, Michael Yon, for a special report on the Iran conflict and its global implications. And after that, 26-year CIA case officer Jeff MD will be joining me for the next episode in our Long War series. The U.S.-Israel war against Iran has entered its 34th day now. Trump just addressed the nation, promising an intensified strike campaign. The Strait of Hormuz remains choked off, and the economic shockwave, fuel, fertilizer, helium, generic drugs is already hitting American households. What happens in the Strait of Hormuz does not stay in the Strait of Hormuz. It shows up at your gas pump, your pharmacy, your grocery store, and inside the domestic jihadi threat picture that we break down in the second half of tonight's broadcast. So what we're specifically covering is Michael Yon's on-the-ground assessment of the Iran conflict, the full economic shockwave breakdown, global escalation risk, and then our main topic on the domestic jihadi radicalization pipeline operating inside of America right now. So as per usual, we have 3 segments per topic. I'm going to dive right into the first segment, and that is an Iran conflict update, the Strait of Hormuz, and the state of the war. So on February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran, killing the supreme leader and targeting nuclear missile and command infrastructure across the country. Iran retaliated with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones directed at Israel, U.S. bases across the Gulf region, and civilian and energy infrastructure in multiple countries. Iran declared the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed on March the 4th, triggering the largest disruption to the global energy supply since the 1970s oil crisis. Before the war, approximately 130 ships per day transited the strait. That number has collapsed to 6 or fewer per day, and Brent crude peaked at $126 per barrel, with some analysts projecting a path to $200 if the closure holds. As of April 2nd, Trump has extended his deadline on striking Iranian energy plants to April 6th, claiming negotiations are proceeding. Iran denies any talks are taking place. Israel's defense minister says attacks will escalate regardless, and diplomatic back channels through Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey are attempting to prevent the conflict from expanding further. This is exactly why we built the Guardians Network: real people, real-time alerts, and direct communication, so you're not trying to figure this out on your own. So let me get Michael on stage. Mr. Michael Yon, good to see you. Thank you.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
I cannot hear you for some reason.
Maybe just log out and right back in again, Michael. Occasionally it happens. It happens to Mike Glover on a regular basis. I think it's a Green Beret thing. Of course, he can't hear what I'm saying. Try just log.
I can hear you before when we started, but I don't hear you now. I think
go ahead.
You might be muted for me.
Or you could just, usually if you log out and back in again, it's all good. It's we seem to have a.
I don't see you there.
Just log out and back in again, Michael. I know you can't hear me, but bounce out and then come back in again, if you can catch that.
There we go. It's on now. Okay.
Oh, okay. So Mike Glover has some issues with StreamYard and his audio going out. So now I've come to the conclusion it's a Green Beret thing. Clearly, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So prior to this, I was saying thank you very much for your time and joining. Let's just jump straight into the first question, Michael. You've been watching this conflict from the ground up. What's the honest operational picture inside Iran right now? And what's the mainstream media not telling Americans, in your opinion?
I mean, mainstream media is useless. I don't know what they're not telling Americans because I don't watch them at all. You know what I mean? It's like asking me what some guy in a village out in the middle of the woods in China thinks. You know, I just don't even know. Because keep in mind, my first experience with mainstream media was you cut off again. Am I here?
You're there, but your picture disappeared. Your
isn't that amazing? Oh, okay. Well, I'll try to get it fixed. But in any case, I'll keep talking while I try to get it fixed.
Go ahead.
Anyway, but the my experience with mainstream media is typically not positive. I mean, and so I don't pay attention. We already know. We can skip past that part, that they're not worth watching. And I don't care what they say because I don't even know what they say. And so let me try to get this camera right, though.
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you keep talking while I try to get it right?
Oh, you got it. You're good.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I will just use the computer camera instead of the good one. All right, there we go. All right,
all good.
So that's the computer camera. All right. So yeah.
Well, go
ahead. The mainstream media, though, and most of the bloggers, the vast majority, especially the bigger they are, typically they come in groups, right? Like, during the Iraq War, I had a huge readership because I did so much combat. Like, I was willing to do combat, like just unbelievable amounts of combat. I would do as much combat as I could get myself into. I was always looking for the units in the most combat. And I did that with everybody. And so I did that for years. And so I had a huge readership is what I'm getting to with that. And it was basically a monopoly because there were bloggers that would come in and, get into a shootout and do the there I was thing, but they didn't really know what they didn't really know what was going on in the war. When a bunch of these bloggers, they were a package deal. They were called mill blogs. And I was always very politely, because people would say, Michael Yon is the king of the mill blogs or whatever. And I didn't want to distance myself and insult all the mill bloggers, but I didn't, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have any reason to make a group shotgun enemy out of them. But at the same time, I was not one of them. So how do you politely say, I'm not actually one of them, but without insulting them? Because I'm not trying. I'm just saying I'm not them. They're a package deal. When they were invited to see President Trump, and if you look up mill bloggers, not Trump, Bush, when they were invited to meet President Bush, and you look up, mill bloggers meet President Bush, and you'll see him sitting at the table with him. And a lot of people are asking, where's Michael Yon? Because if you take the next top mill bloggers, or say the top 10 mill bloggers, I probably had 10 times the readership of the next 10 combined, right? So, I
Wow.
mean, we were not even in the same universe, right? And I was the only one that didn't go. Now, I very politely did not go. I didn't I'm not going to see Bush, but I didn't want to be seen with Bush. And I didn't want to be seen sitting at a table with a bunch of mill bloggers because they're a package deal, right? I mean, it's just like, it's like that's a drive-through thing, right? I'll take fries and a Coke and you know what I mean, that's all these bloggers. They're packaged up in a bag. Okay, here you go. These are the guys that do mill blog stuff. These are the guys that do gardening, right? That's how this stuff goes. And so, and a lot of the people that are packaged up don't even actually realize it, and others do. There's the knowing and the unknowing, right? In any case, I never did it. And as you can see, because of the things that I do and I say, I'm not in those clubs. For instance, I've never been on the Joe Rogan show, even though I've had so many overtures from different people. Hey, I can get you on the Joe Rogan show. I was live on Alex Jones one time, and he's like, I've known Joe for like 26 years, and I'm like, I'm not going on Dope or Joe Rogan show. I'm not going on any show where somebody pushes dope on millions of young people. That is my enemy, right? I'm not going to. And then, of course, a lot of people invariably say, don't you understand? You can reach a big audience by going on Dope or Joe show. Listen, I can do the math. I didn't become the number one by far voice in Iraq and Afghanistan by not being able to do the math, right? You know what I'm saying? After I left those wars, a lot of people thought I disappeared, but I didn't. I was doing the same thing in Thailand, right? I was huge, affecting some things in Thailand that were very, very important, right? And you will look up my name in Thailand. You'll see me flying around with the prime minister and that sort of thing, right? I wrote the last 2 pages of his book, right? So, I mean, I was doing these things around the world. I can do the math, right? You see how Darien Gap got put on the map. I absolutely can do the math. And but the point is one of the main weapons that's used against us is intoxicants of all sorts, whether that be alcohol, cannabis, whatever. And so you see the guys, pushing the dope and the alcohol on the shows. I'm like, hey, that's part of a package deal. That's part of the literal weapon system against us, right? The main way we killed the American Indians off was attacking their food supply. It was attack alcohol. It wasn't rifles as much as it was rifles, but it was alcohol. Alcohol was the number one weapon against the Indians. Up all the way. These books right here are all about I'm in my in one of the rooms of my library. This is a war library. It took years to make this. And there's not a single book here on guns. It's all about things like intoxicants, financial war, routes, resources, ideology, right? It's all about the big war, big stuff, not little stuff. It's about big stuff. It's not about little stuff, which I would say would be like Navy SEALs, Special Forces, Delta Force. You know what I mean? That's little stuff war. That's like the plumbers, right? I'm talking big stuff. I'm talking financial war. I'm talking intoxicants. We're talking music warfare. We're talking information war. Is the highest form of warfare is information war, and psychological operations is a subset of that. So when we talk about mainstream media and these packaged bloggers, they're a tiny subset of a huge information war, right? I go to museums all over the world, dozens of countries, museums that I go to. My wife and I, Misaka, we go to so many museums you wouldn't believe because we study information war in museums. You can see museums, we call it museum warfare, or one of a major component in information war, and there's a reason for that. They'll make these museums or statues often, and then you bring a bunch of journalists there to the museum or the statue, and you have these junket trips, and next thing you know, it's all in the news, and because I've written about this many times, and of course then it's on Wikipedia. And I always tell people, if you send me one more Wikipedia link, if I had an anti-Wikipedia cruise missile, I would launch it, right? It's like Wikipedia, are you kidding me? And then they'll say, don't you understand it's got the links down below? It's like, brother, I understand so much that you should be listening, right? I understand it very well. I know exactly how it works. I was in the home of one of the Wikipedia editors in Hong Kong, right? He had the login and password. I told him, hey, the stuff on my Wikipedia page is defamatory. He's like, oh, we can fix that. I'm like, you can just log in and do this. It was actually not a home, it was an apartment. I'm like, what? He's like, oh yeah, there's just a few of us that have, they have, they had executive privileges, basically. They could edit any page, right? And without audit, without somebody else, checking to make, I'm like, you got to be joking, man. And so this is how it works. So you get mainstream or a bunch of bloggers and you get them to write stuff and you get them to cite each other. And then Wikipedia cites it. It's child's play. It's so simple. It takes literally minutes. You can go, okay, somebody says, oh, we need to change the Wikipedia. Okay, New York Times read an article about this, so it's up in 3 hours. And then they'll cite New York Times and it changed Wikipedia. Boom, there you go, right? That quick. And so that's how that's just one tiny component of information war. The music that we grew up with is almost all highly weaponized. I grew up in I was born in 1964 in Florida, right? So I grew up in that, hearing that kind of music. And, the music that we thought was, my grandparents used to warn, they're like, that music and don't go to movies and all that stuff. And of course you're like, I hugely respected my grandparents, but you're like, don't go to the movies. What's wrong with the movies? That's kind of out there, but but I hugely respected my grandparents. So I'm like, so it always sat with me, and they turned out to be right. They were right. But the music thing, I didn't realize how right they were until I had studied it for, well, I've got a whole section in our library on music warfare. But the point is these things are. If you look at the music that we grew up listening to in, say, the 70s and the 80s, it's highly weaponized. Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. All song after song is about, drinking and meeting in a bar and getting in a fight in a bar and doing drugs, cocaine, Eric Clapton, all that crap, right? I mean, totally, all these movies that make, all this stuff look cool, and every movie you look at, they've got, alcohol or whatever. And the next thing you know, over a period of time, it reduces the cognition level of our collective mind, right? And it reduces the ability of people to just see what's good. The main juice of psychological operations is intoxicants, right? It's just intoxicants. And so that's how this unfolds. So that's the level of warfare I look at. Every war you've ever studied comes down to three things. Either one of these three things, two of these three things, or all three of them. Routes, resources, and ideology. That's it, right? Every war you've ever studied comes down to, sometimes it's a war of ideology. And ideology is about human resources, right? You got Catholics fighting Protestants, or Shia versus Sunni, or different types of Jews fighting different types of Jews, or Vishnites versus Shivites in the Hindu world. It's like, it's all down to human resources on that level, right? And so, but routes, resources, and ideology. And so whatever war you're looking at will come down to those things. And the current war, which has been going on for at least since centuries, actually it's biblical. It's been going on at least since then, which is, millennia, is ideologically based, of course, but it's about ideology. It's about resources as well, routes and resources. Why? Almost every holy land you ever look at on earth, when you really look at it, it's at some crossroads. It's some important place. It's some physically important place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it ends up being a holy land, but it was holy. It's all mixed in together: routes, resources, and ideology. The reason that Panama, the country, even exists, I mean, we created Panama in 1903, November 3rd, 1903. The United States created Panama so that we could create the Panama Canal, because Panama used to be part of Colombia. So Colombia didn't want to play, so we sponsored a rebellion, and then we created the Republic of Panama, and then we immediately entered an agreement so we could make a canal, right? So then we worked very hard to make Panama a stable country and a stable platform for a path between the seas. Now, 1869, rewind the tapes, Suez Canal opens, right? At that time, the British Empire was by far the most powerful empire in the world. But when the Suez Canal opened, they're like, hey, this is a spinal cord of the British Empire. Some of them started calling it, Egypt could take this, and they did. Eventually they were right. And so anyway, why does Israel even exist? Israel exists for the same reason that Panama exists. It existed to get control of that canal, and to get through that region is very important. So the British monarchy and their oligarchical systems hijacked. Well, let's say they took the organic Zionists and they made them into what they are now, which was something that would take over Israel. And they used a huge psychological operation. I grew up as a Christian Zionist. There was a huge operation to make Christians and make everybody go over there and fight for that land. And under ideological guise, that was a psyop, right? That was a psyop to get control of that very location, right? And that's what's going on now. It's a giant psyop, but it's about routes and resources. So the ideology is a weapon over routes and resources. Now, some of these ideologies obviously want to have Armageddon, and some of these ideologies, like for instance, the political Zionist in particular, especially the Netanyahu, Trump, Epstein brand, they want a population reduction, hardcore. I mean, including the people in Israel. Now, when I say this, people are like, wait a minute, do you understand what you just said? You're saying the Zionists want to kill off the Israelis? Let me say that very clearly. The Zionists are clearly killing off the Israelis, like super obviously, and they're also using the Israelis to go after Gazans, obviously, so they can clear out the Palestinians, do that genocide for that beachfront property near that gas. They want to build the Ben Gurion Canal. They want the Indo-European corridor to go through. Israel, that land is extremely important. That's one of the most important little spots on planet Earth. That's why the big fight there. It's not about the ideology is weaponized, right? We made Panama, but it didn't have a lot of ideology involved. It was just routes and resources there. Very little ideology, right? That was very, very tiny component of ideology in Panama. But in the Middle East, it's huge ideology. All those Gulf states, I call them the 1922 states. They were formed, Percy Cox, drew the lines and all this, 1922. So now we got Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, all these different countries, right? Those were formed for routes and resources. Israel, 1948, routes and resources. It was formed. Look, you see this? This is an authentic, real share warrant that I found in an antique store. This is 1899. This is to make the Jewish state and clone. This is Theodor Herzl, right there. That's his little tiny name. Yeah, Theodor Herzl, the guy that wrote this book. That guy. I got a whole part of my library is on Theodore and the other. That's your original hardcore Zionist right there, Theodor Herzl. Anyway, but those guys were used, Theodor Herzl and whatnot, to then take Israel. Anyway, all those Gulf states and Israel were formed with crayons. Their borders were made with crayons so that for control over routes and resources, right? And now they're being reduced. They're being destroyed, right? The puppets often become in the way, right? The puppets, Mike Glover, right?
Yep.
Green Beret. So Mike Glover will be extremely familiar with the 7 phases. I guess they still teach Green Berets this. He's of the older generation. I think they teach, well, when I was in, they taught, the 7 phases of a U.S. sponsored unconventional war, right? And the 7th phase is demobilization. I think they changed that in recent years to transition. I know they changed it, but I don't know when they changed it. But when I was in, they just called it demobilization. That's when the army that we raised up, you try to demobilize it, transition it back to, being farmers or something, right? And that's where the Green Berets often get killed. That's the most dangerous phase. The puppet doesn't want to go back to being a piece of wood, right? The puppet doesn't want to. How about this in Germany? Puppets are what it's all about, right? Puppeting.
Right.
And the puppet often then the strings go both ways, right? The string, you can pull the puppet strings, but as the puppet grows, often the puppet can reverse it, and now the puppet is the puppeteer. And so that's, if you want to make that puppet stop, who's the first person Pinocchio attacked? The man who made him, right? The man who made Pinocchio then attacked. That's what the puppets often do. Charlie Kirk, right? Whatever happened to Charlie Kirk, is he really dead? I have no idea. But let's say they demobilized his caricature, right? He's been taken off the movie screen. He's been demobbed, as you would say. But what I'm getting to is, when we create these puppets, and this has been going on for a long time, long before America was ever born. The Romans were doing it. The Romans were good at it. The British were doing it. You know, of course, the British and the Romans. I mean, the British, you know, Rome to Britain. But what I'm getting to is this is an old game, and creating puppets and getting people to fight each other, anthropological warfare, demographic warfare, right? And so, which are not exactly the same, but what I'm getting to is these puppets. Israel is a puppet. That puppet was not made as a homeland for Jewish people. That's what it was sold for. That's what it was sold to Christian Zionists like me, right? That's what like most of my life, I was a strong proponent of Israel, right? I was a strong, we got to defend Israel guy, right? And then over time, I'm like, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? What's going on? You know, something's not right here, right? And what I'm getting to is that puppet is now out of control, way out of control, as they tend to get often. And that puppet is maniacal, right? And it's clearly doing things that are, well, it's taken over the puppet master. Now the puppet master, Trump is a Zionist, obviously, right? When I first started saying that on interviews way back when, people were like, you can't say that. We can never run this. You know, I was on with Ivor Cummins down in Argentina, and he didn't even run the interview for a long time until it became obvious that Trump is a Zionist. I mean, he says he is, right? Back when I was saying it, he wouldn't say it. But now now that, you know, Trump admits to it and all that, you know, now it's like everybody knows he's a Zionist. Okay, he always was, right? When Newt Gingrich called me up before the first election, what was that? I don't know, 2015 or 16 or whatever it was. He called me up and he was trying to get support for Trump. And I'm like, he called me at my office in Thailand, right? And I said, how'd you get my number? Anyway, but in any case, I'm not going to support Trump. I'm never going to vote for a Clinton, but I don't trust that guy. The days that many people have said I turned my back on Trump. You will not use AI. Search for when did Michael Yon support Trump? It'll come zero from day one, right? I can see right through that guy, right? You can see yourself and you can see your opposite. People that are very similar to you, they pop off the page to you. You can say, hey, we're pretty similar. And the people that are the opposite, they pop off the page. Trump pops off the page to me because we're the opposite. How do I predict him so well? People have been asking in recent couple of years. It's easy. I just pick what I would do, and then I say, well, I'll pick the opposite, and that's what he does. And I'll publish, well, I think this is what Trump will do. And that's what Trump does. How did I know that? Because it's the opposite of what I would do, right? I would, you know what I mean? Like push cannabis, you know, and that sort of thing. Or he's not for closed borders. That's bullshit, right? He is handing out visas. He has not gone after and defunded the United Nations and IOM and HIAS and all these Catholic charities. He has not gone after these people. They're still in place. They're still out there in the Darien. They're still in Panama. They're still in Philippines. We just saw, my wife and I just saw them in Istanbul, Turkey recently. IOM was helping, International Organization for Migration, was helping people get on an airplane to Vancouver, Canada. We were transiting Istanbul, and Istanbul happens to be a major hub for the transits of the invasions, right? Yeah. And it has been for years. But what I'm getting to is he is one of them, right? So now I know I lost a lot of readers by never joining the Trump train. I'm like, sooner or later, you're going to see, because I'm sticking with fundamentals. I know what that guy is. That guy is a crocodile. I used to hunt gators with my hands and with my guns and my rod and reels and all that stuff. I know how gators operate. I know their habits. I know how to catch them and eat them, right? And I know how they operate. Gators ain't puppies. I can say, oh, nice puppy. It's a gator. It'll rip your arm off, right? You look at Trump, that dude's a traitor, right? You can see it. It leaps off the page. He will always be a traitor. He's a coward. Cowards are natural traitors. Every coward you ever met is a traitor. They are organically traitors, right? That dude is a coward. Trump is a coward, and he is got his bad personality traits were nurtured. I mean, his arrogance, his flippancy, his cruelty, all these sorts of things. He laughs at pushing the death jab into his cult. His cult's like, Fauci fooled him. No, Fauci didn't fool him. He fooled you, right? He fooled you, and so many people now are dead because of it, like Scott Adams. Scott Adams, that Dilbert dude, he blocked me years ago, and now he's dead, right? And Scott Adams was trying to push people to take the jab. I mean, you might not be with us much later, Scott, and anyway, he ended up blocking me, and guess what? He's dead now, right? And he was all the way to the end. He was then, coming up and asking Elon and all these guys for Elon Musk. As Catherine Austin Fitz said to Masako, my wife and I stayed for more than a month with her in Netherlands recently. We were talking about Elon Musk. Catherine said, he's not a birth, he's an op, right? And I was like, exactly. So this guy who's supposed to go to Mars and put brain chips in us, he couldn't figure out how to get to Germany and go to his giga plants without taking the jabs, which he pushed. Elon Musk pushed the jabs. And so he was very public about it, right? But he said he couldn't get to Germany without taking the jab. Meanwhile, Masako and I were running all over Europe, including Germany, at the same time, and we didn't take them, right? So we're not the ones that want to put brain chips in everybody. We're not the ones that saying we're going to go to Mars, but we could get to Germany. But the guy with the private rocket ships and private jets, and that guy could, buy a F-15 with pocket change, and he couldn't get to Germany. And he's got a multi-billion-dollar giga plant there. You know what you do if you're a serious man? You say, here, Germany, here's the deal. I'm going to be there Monday morning at 8 o'clock in my jet, right? And I'm going to land at such and such airport near my factory. And if I'm detained, that factory will be closed. It's that serious. And I'm not telling any of my people that they have to get the jab. But that's not who he is. He's an op. He's clear. He also has been on the Doper Joe Rogan show, smoking dope and pushing it on people. So where are we going to with all this? This war, the war that we're in is huge. It's been going on for at a minimum many centuries. It's nothing new. And the only way you're going to be able to understand what's going on and be predictive with it is to really put your time in studying history. That's very important, and distance yourself from all the noise that people are talking about and all that. Oh, we all got to vote for Trump. Who'd you want? Biden? You know what I mean? Who'd you want? Biden? All right, puppet. The puppets are like, did you want this puppet or did you want that puppet? Look, they're both hanging off the same hanger, right? They're the same guy. Biden and Trump are the same guy. Kamala Harris is the same. Obama, I've been to his school twice over in Jakarta. Red diaper baby Obama. Red diaper baby means a child of the parents were Communist Party members. But that guy, Obama was another op. Bush, another op, right? One after another. One guy the one president I really have liked since my young days was Reagan. But then when I objectively look at Reagan, he was an actor, right? Coincidentally, Trump is an actor. You're fired, right? Anyway, I'll be quiet. Sorry, sir.
No, you're good. That's quite a dissertation on the lay of the land. Let me ask you just some miscellaneous questions here, and then we'll talk specifically on Iran. Number one, would you consider SSRIs an intoxicant?
I don't know. I know that there people associate those with all kinds of school shootings and that sort of thing. But I mean, and a lot of the weapons that are used against us are prescribed. Yeah. What? Let me say something. Go ahead, sir. I'll be quiet.
Well, I was just gonna say that SSRIs, multiple studies now have proven that they amplify the bad behavior, the mental illness. They don't cure it. I personally think it's a means of zombifying people and making them violent and unhinged. But that's the SSRI side. A quick background question, Michael. How many live theaters of war have you been in approximately?
For long periods, Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 years in Iraq, 2 years in Afghanistan. Then I was out with the Maoists a lot in Nepal. I spent a year in Nepal, but I never wrote about that. And then I was in 2 coups in Thailand, got kicked out of Hong Kong. I wouldn't call that a war, but it was, and a lot of little things, but for protracted actual combat, 4 years in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay. Just a quick side.
The coups in Thailand, though, were quite interesting as well. They were very kinetic. And anyway, but go ahead.
Well, no, just a quick question since you raised Charlie Kirk's name. So there's some 4K video, high quality video been released in the past 48 hours. And I'm not saying it's legit or not. I checked that it's not AI generated, but it doesn't mean that somebody didn't edit the video. They're trying to say that the lapel mic that he had exploded. And it's an interesting view, but here's all I've got to ask you. We've got the exploding pagers from the Israelis. We've got bugs now that are this big, that are mechanical, that spy on people from the Israelis. Just completely out in left field. Is it possible that a mic could have exploded and caused that death, in your opinion?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously it could. I mean, there's anybody that's ever dealt with explosives and blasting caps know you can pack in some petting and something that size, right?
Fair
and
enough.
So, but I have no idea what happened. Although it was clearly a stage. Like they cleaned it up and cleaned. Look at the thing that Trump did. The Trump assassination thing, right? Now, keep in mind, I just happen to be the most experienced combat photographer that I know from actual combat, not war. There's war correspondents who don't do really much combat, and then there's the very rare actual no shit combat correspondents. You'll be lucky to ever meet one in your whole life, actually, because I say lucky, but there's just not that many, is what I'm saying, right? And there's a lot of war correspondents. There's not that many that really will spend months at a time or years at a time in combat. I took a lot of photos in combat, right? Eric Carilla getting shot in front of me. So many very famous photos, right? Eric Carilla ended up being the CENTCOM commander, by the way. And so, I was photographing him the second he got shot, right? At 5 frames a second, right? I did this stuff for years, right? And I see.
No, I'm just giving a shout out to.
Okay, all right. And so,
Mike.
But so what I'm saying is, and I was a special forces weapons guy, and I was familiar with weapons before the Army, during the Army, and later, right? So what I'm getting to is I've seen a lot of sniper operations coming and going, our guys getting shot around me, our guys shooting guys. And I published, I was with British forces one time, I was with a sniper, and he basically kind of moved out of the way so I could shoot a photo through his scope while he was lining up to shoot a guy, which he then fired the shot, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of sniper ops coming and going, and I'm extremely familiar with the weapons and the cameras, is what I'm getting to. I'm setting the table with that. When I saw the bullet trace on the Trump thing, I'm like, bullshit. Yeah, the bullshit. I was like, keep in mind. And so I was like, what shutter speed was that for start? Who's ever caught a bullet? Anybody that's done sniper stuff knows you can see a very quick bullet trace when you're behind it and that sort of thing. But catching on a and it turns out I used the same camera that the photographer was using, which was a Sony Alpha 1, right? Okay. And the lens that he's using is in the other room, actually. And so I'm actually, I was shooting on a Sony Alpha 1 to begin with when we started talking, but now anyway, what I'm getting to is I'm very familiar with that camera. I've shot a huge amount, and I'm very familiar with combat photography, and I'm very familiar with weapons. I just happen to have all the necessary skills, very familiar with weapons, very familiar with cameras, very familiar with combat photography. And I'm like, that bullet trace photo, that's bullshit. and so I started publishing that, and I said, the photographer, what's his name? Anyway, he needs to release the raw images, right? Many people said that some of my combat photos were fake because they were so extraordinary, right? And I'm like, be careful with that. You're going to end up in a courtroom, and I've got the raw photos. I shoot everything in raw, right? So everything I do is legit, right? And I've got it in raw. If anybody claims that something was faked, we're going to end up in a defamation lawsuit, and I'm going to clean out your house without remorse, because you're going to see it's all legit. But the raw photos are very difficult to fake. Now, the camera that he's using, there's a device you can buy from Sony. It's a Sony Alpha 1 camera. There's a device that you can buy when you're shooting the photo, boom, it uploads immediately. You don't have to plug it in or anything. It can upload, or you can go plug it into a laptop nearby or whatever. And then it goes right back to HQ. They can put an overlay on it, right? And so in any case, what I'm getting to is that, and I said to people, listen, don't take my word for it. There has been millions and millions of police photos shot in the streets. There is millions and millions of combat photos that people have shot from World War I. So, who's ever caught a photo like that? I went to a range and tried to recreate it. I said, don't take my word for it. Go to the range, shoot 100,000 rounds, see if you can catch a photo like that. Buy the camera that he's got. I did it. I went to the range with that camera and lens, shot a bunch of rounds, couldn't catch anything like that. You can catch a bullet, maybe, but you're not. That photo is fake, right? Period. I mean, I'm not saying the photo's fake, but that overlay, that bullet trace, that ain't real. And I've obviously taking huge chances with defamation if he were able to, demonstrate that it is real, but he's not going to be able to. He hasn't released the raw photos at all. And you're going to be able to see that it's just not real. Nobody's been able to recreate it. So what I'm getting to is there's huge psyop going on, obviously, at all times, even with stuff like that. Charlie Kirk, there's obviously a lot wrong with that. There's, 30-06, get out of here with that crap. You know what I mean? It's like, it's fake. Everything that we got that comes out of those people is fake.
Well, a very good friend of mine is a combat wounded Green Beret, Randy Nance, and he's on 3 or 4 nights a week with me. And we're both of the same opinion. There's a cervical vertebrae is not stopping a 30-06 projectile shot within 150 yards. Not a chance. And
zero chance.
I've seen a 2,000-pound bull moose get hit in the neck with a 30-06. It didn't decapitate it, but it still sailed clear through and out the other side and severed some major flesh. But I've got Jeff.
And I saw a lot of people hit with 5.56, and typically it's a through and through. Typically they and and that's a tiny bullet. That's nothing compared to a 30-06. 30-06 is like getting hit with a freight train compared to a BB gun. If you have M16 compared to a 30-06, I mean, that's not even in the same class. The 30-06, that's a man's rifle. That's sort of like the level that they were shooting in World War II, blow your arm off type stuff.
Well, from a body armor perspective, it's still, what's a 30-06 do as far as going from a level 3, 3A and all the way up to level 4? Can it withstand a 30-06 projectile, basically? But let me squeeze a few questions in.
What body armor do you need to stop a 30-06 round and not actually die? You're gonna be flying down the road, man. That really will be a movie scene. You won't fly down the road, but I think you are gonna. I've seen people get shot in the body armor. Boom, they're down. That's just an AK, man. That's not a 30-06.
I can answer that question. We put a couple different manufacturers, actually, level 4 plates, pristine condition on ballistic dummies. And when we hit it with a 30-06, it broke the ribs down both sides of the plate. So the first shot didn't penetrate, but it broke the ribs on both sides. It pushed that plate directly into the chest cavity. So you're still DRT one way or the other. But let me squeeze a few questions in on Iran before Jeff joins and you have to go. What's the end game with this Iran war, Michael? Like
famines? I mean, this. Keep in mind, this is not. I warned about this. I even got the timing right of the attack, right? I mean, I was publishing when I thought the attack would happen. A lot of people are like, they're not going to attack. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to attack, but I think that they will. And I think they're going to attack meaning Zionist forces are going to attack between February 22nd and March 3rd. And it ended up being February 28th. And so I kept publishing that. I think it'll be between February 22nd and March 3rd. And actually, with what's going on now, we're in a high probability moment of attack right now if they're going to do ground forces, but I think they're not really deploying as many ground forces as they say. I don't know, but this is a high probability moment due to various reasons.
Well, let me ask you, what's the number that you've heard as far as head count of troops that have been deployed to the area?
I don't know. I don't know at all, actually. What have you heard? I just don't know. It would be hearsay if I said anything.
Well, let me just pull this up here. This is worldmonitor.app, and for people who want to know about it. So you can slice and dice this however you want on different data points. 4 weeks ago, I started tracking military assets leaving the east coast of America heading for the Mediterranean. And in the first week alone, there were over 50,000 personnel went from the east coast to the Mediterranean, our people. So I don't care what the mainstream media says. I know for a fact we have over 50,000 boots on the ground in the vicinity already. And originally the media said it was going to be 2,500. And
yeah, I don't know, but if they put them in, I think it's going to be, and I think that they will actually.
Agreed.
And it will be so that they do get killed. And you know, remember Jessica Lynch on March 23rd, 2003, right? She pretty blonde hair girl gets captured. Her unit got ambushed, and you know, and then you know that was a big story, and then it turned out to be a huge amount of fraud. I mean, the ambush actually did apparently occur with fatalities, but what I'm getting to is this idea. I mean, if they go in, I think that the idea is to get the Marines or the Rangers or 82nd killed. I think that's what they want to happen, and have some POWs, or you know, they'll call them hostages, preferably pretty blonde girls, that sort of thing, or you know, people that will get everybody. Preferably, it'll be like Charlie's Angels. It'll be a pretty black girl, pretty blonde girl, pretty Asian girl. You know what I mean? It'll get something for everybody. And so that people will be riled up and want to go and do something really horrific in Iran. But you know, the idea that we're going to invade Iran and somehow succeed in taking over the country is like, we'd be better off, you know, sending the whole army to the moon. I mean, we're just not going to do it. It's not going to work. We're not going to invade Iran and take over the country. You know, for those who were in Vietnam, which I wasn't there. Well, I was there, but not in the war. I mean, I was there much later. But Vietnam is nothing compared to the size of Iran in population or size. Likewise with Iraq and Afghanistan, where I spent 2 years in each of those wars. Keep in mind, Iraq and Afghanistan is mostly wide open desert. You know what I mean? We're talking, I mean, a lot of mountains and stuff, a lot of micro terrain and major terrain as well. But it is wide open. So, I mean, it's a type of warfare that does tend to suit our weapon systems, right? But Iran, not so much. And Iran's much more sophisticated, as Matt Bracken will often say. And also they've got big partners, China, Russia, who are definitely going to be helping out, Pakistan, right? And the idea that we're going to come in there and just kick a bunch of butt and walk away, that's not how this is going to play out. And I think all the veterans see where this is going, but and realizing that any troops that we send there are being expended. Now, I think the next play is they want to do a draft. The Zionists want to do a draft, kill off as many patriots as possible. I've written this many times, long before this started. Do a draft, kill off as many patriots as possible, and then replace our army with the invaders who've come through the border, right? Who've invaded, like, you know, so suddenly you've got our U.S. military is replaced with a army that will genocide Americans. So, I mean, that's easy to do. This is just a process. It's not an event. It's a process that's clearly unfolding already. It's clearly unfolding right now, right? And so, let
me show this map, Michael, just so people understand what you're saying. That's what Iran looks like from a topographical perspective. And those mountains are extreme. And it's essentially probably one of the hardest countries in the world to invade by land. It's extremely well protected. And that's what Michael was alluding to, basically. This is nothing like Iraq at all.
Yeah, that's and much bigger, more people, better armed. They've expected this invasion for a long time. These are very sophisticated people. And actually, have you ever met a Persian that you wanted to kill? You know what I mean? Like, I've met a lot of Persians, I'm like, I tend to like them, even the ones coming through the Darien Gap. I'm like, what are you coming through here for? And I don't know who they are. Maybe they're coming up to do a mission in America, and they're our enemies. But at the same time, I've never actually met Iranians that I wanted to go to war with. You know what I mean? But we're taught that these are our blood enemies. We're supposed to go kill them all. I'm not in the mood for killing Iranians. You know, it's just like I don't see I'm not seeing the reason to do any war, except that this is an ideological war and a routes and resources war that the Zionists definitely hardcore want. But I'm not a Zionist, right? And the Zionists are, remember who pushed the death jab? Zionists. That was made by Zionists. That was a weapon system. All of us, almost all of us, probably know people that have died after that jab. I certainly do, quite a few.
Yeah, so Jeff MD is going to join in 9 minutes, and we're going to pivot to another topic. But so between now and then, I got a handful of questions for you. You, when I asked you what the end game of this Iran conflict was, the first word out of your mouth was famine. And we have been warning our followers that we are about to see food scarcity that nobody has seen that's alive today in America. Give me your thoughts on why you use the word famine, what you think is coming from a food perspective, and what prepared Americans need to do, like right now.
Right. Again, if somebody could do one of those AI searches, you'll probably say, like, Mike, how often has Michael Yon warned about famine? You'll probably find it's thousands of times since 2020. Mm-hmm. Like literally, it wasn't like 100. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a steady drumbeat, famine, famine, famine. And over time, I've learned more about how they're doing it, right? And I've learned more, like Masako and I successfully predicted Nord Stream would be attacked, right? We successfully predicted, sorry, I was looking at the camera that's not working. And we successfully predicted a lot of things, actually, because we actually know what they're doing. We know what they're doing because they actually say it, right? And they write it and they do it, right? So they're trying to create famine to reduce the global population.
Right. Let me just throw something out there quickly because it's very germane to this point of the conversation. One of our main sponsors is Carnival. And I went to them a couple of days ago and I said, hey, what are the chances of doing some sort of promo for our subscribers? And it has nothing to do with me. There's no affiliate income or anything like that. So they put together this bulk buy. And I just wanted to mention it. If you're watching this podcast and you want to be part of a one-time bulk purchase from Carnival to get, basically freeze-dried meat with a 25-year shelf life, send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. I will relay it to them. Nobody's going to email you spam. I don't make a penny off it. I'm not going to facilitate it, but they are. So, Michael, back to the question, though. What do you recommend besides stocking up on food that Americans do right now?
First, understand the situation. When I'm talking about famine here, we're not talking about locusts coming and going or that sort of thing. We're talking about a structural reduction of capacity to create food, right? A huge structural reduction. So when the music stops, there's going to be billions of people that need chairs, and there's going to be a lot fewer chairs. And so there's going to be a fight over that. And there's going to be human osmotic pressure, the push and pull of migration, human osmotic pressure, right? And you're going to see people moving by the millions, maybe tens of millions or even more. That's why I've been warning about Darien Gap. What do you get? You have to create your own food. You're going to have to, ultimately, it's clearly not going to go back the way that it was. And we're not going to really get hit hard with this until next year, right? Because next year, now you might see huge shortages this year, and you probably will. I expect you will. But it'll be next year that it gets quite serious, because we're eating the food that was created last year mostly, right? So a lot of the food that's already in the warehouses and that sort of thing, it's already been created. And then there's a lot of fertilizer that's still out there in the warehouses and pipelines that's being used, and then that's being reduced, and then you'll see that. So there's a long flash to bang, right?
Okay.
And then if you're not in a good situation, you're gonna have to make one with cannibalism or something, because this is what it's coming down to. This is no joke. And I say that not entirely flippantly. I'm not saying become a cannibal. I'm saying there will be a lot of cannibals. There will be a lot of cannibals, because in famines there already are. And notice they have been, over the last years, normalizing cannibalism. I see it everywhere. You'll see it pop up in all kinds of different ways. And they've been normalizing it for years for this moment.
Let me ask you this. I've got Jeff backstage, and we're going to move into the next topic very, very shortly. Give me 3 things that every American needs to do immediately to prepare for this famine that's coming.
Take inventory of your strengths and your weaknesses, and location, location, location. Where are you at? Are you creating your own food? And you have to, we are not meant to be, Rambo is a movie, right? In reality, we live in networks. We live in tribes. You have to either create your own tribe from scratch or join one, or reinforce the one you're already in, preferably, right? One way to do that, by the way, is like people that go to church. Often that'll be a nucleus, right? That's where you can meet people that tend to be more clean and that sort of thing. So, like one old Green Beret guy I knew down in Texas, he went to church and he made a spreadsheet of all the abilities of the people in the church, like, what they're able to do. And so he started, like one old woman, she was elderly, and I've told the story many times. She said, "Hey, I don't know how to do anything." And he's like, "Well, you know how to do stuff. You're a great grandmother." And so one of the things she knew how to do was can food. And he said, "Canned food? None of the young people know how to do that. You're in charge of canning operations." Now I need to know, what materials do you need? What pressure cookers, what jars, what salt, vinegar, what do you need? Just tell me what you need. Make a list, be generous, and I'll cause you to have this stuff. And then you teach the young people. And she was happy. I mean, what do you mean you don't know how to do anything? You know how to can food. Teach everybody quick.
Okay, so number one, take an inventory of your strengths and weaknesses, yourself and your circle. What's number two?
You need 24 karat information. And remember, all of our family lines have been through a lot of war. Nobody watching this comes from a family line that didn't come from war and famine and pandemic. Everybody watching this comes from a long family line of disaster, war, and we're here. We're still here. This is our turn, brother. You know what I mean? It's time to be a leader, right? And so it's time to be never be the problem, be the solution, right? Be the person that's there with, like, maybe I don't know how to do it, but I'm gonna figure it out, or I'm gonna knock on doors till I find somebody that does, right? And we'll get things done by just doing it, right? So, be a leader, be the person that initiates action, or sometimes you might need to initiate non-action, depending on the case, right? So, so be a leader. And so everybody first lead yourself, and then, always be the solution, not the problem.
Third one, we got 2 minutes. Third thing that people should do.
Endurance. This is a new world. So you're going to have to adapt quickly, right? In survival situations, which is what this is, the first thing is you need accurate information. Sit under a tree, think about it, and then start taking steps, action, or sometimes what you need to do is nothing. And sometimes, because sometimes the wise thing to do is to be quiet and just look, and figure out what to do next, right? And so you have to, think this through, because adaptability is one thing that everybody watching this is highly adaptable, because we're human beings. We're amazingly adaptable. So you just have to adapt. Things are going to change, and just don't look back. I mean, the way that things were, well, they're over. That's fine. And we want to live the old ways. Here we go. Right.
Final minute. Where can people find you online, Michael?
I'm on Substack. Michael Yon. My last name is Yon, and Substack, and everything I put there is for free. But if you want to pay to subscribe, you can do that. You won't get anything special if you pay, but you help other people that I need the money to operate, obviously, but there's a lot of people that need the information that don't have the money. So don't worry about it. You'll still get the information. Just take it and run with it. But if you can pay, please do. And also I'm on X quite often. So X and under Big Honey. Big Honey was my call sign on the border on our radios.
That was right on. Okay, and I'm just bringing it up right now. Quickly share it with our audience so that they can see the Substack. Substack's great. There's no censorship there or anything like that. But I'll put links in the live chat so people can find you on X and Substack. Michael, I appreciate your time very much. Appreciate you sharing your insight, and stay in touch.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, bye. Michael. Mr. MD, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
Is that a trick question?
No, it's a real question. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream, one nightmare at a time. You know that.
Yeah. Nightmares are what you make them. Nightmares are just dreams with a little more action.
Yeah, I reckon so. I don't know if you caught the end of that. He's got just a wealth of world travel and knowledge at his disposal, and he's obviously very intelligent, and he wants to get it all out there. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, not necessarily a bad thing, but he did say one thing that was ironic, that tweaked me, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. He's predicting massive famine is coming as one of the many after effects of this conflict that we're going into. He's predicting that we'll send in the 82nd. I'm trying to think of who else he said. The 82nd, the Rangers, and there was one more. And he said, we're going to have a bunch of deaths, and that's going to, galvanize people. So rah, 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 more war, and it's going to end up in famine for everybody. You just give me your perspective on that, Jeff, before we get into our topic.
There's an impact on fertilizer production, but it's not something that we are incapable of countering. I mean, fertilizer production from natural gas, which we have a shit ton of, is a relatively straightforward process. It's not difficult. So if there was a shortage of synthetic fertilizer, someone could easily say, I've got gas, I'll do synthetic fertilizer. And they could get a plant up and running relatively quickly. I don't think it's going to be mass starvation. It might be in parts of the world. And I think that might be due to the disruption of fuel supplies, because most places you use heavy equipment for food production, tractors, combines, etc. And they require diesel. And if the price of diesel goes through the roof, or you can't get diesel for food production, you'll see a reduction in crops and cultivation, so a reduction in yields as well. I don't think it's going to be mass worldwide starvation, because I think the food production capability of the planet is pretty flexible. That's why when you have crop failures in one country, they can make it up somewhere else. Prices will go up because it's supply and demand. And one thing we could do almost instantly to avoid it is to get rid of the goddamn ethanol bullshit for fuel. How much corn are we wasting to add to gasoline to give it higher oxygenation and quote, theoretically less pollution? It's more efficient to just use, if you need to do that to your fuel, to use methanol instead of ethanol. And methanol can be produced from natural gas and at industrial scale, and doesn't require any corn or croplands. So that immediately would free up more corn for food.
Yeah. So let me just throw this out. I mentioned a few minutes ago, but I want to make sure everybody is clear. I don't get any affiliate income from Carnival. They've been generous to help us defer some expenses, but I went to them a couple days ago. I expressed a concern, Jeff, that, we're going to see difficulty getting good quality food, right? You got 80,000 beef cattle ranchers put out of business in the past few years.
Yeah.
You got beef coming in from all around the world that has all kinds of crap, and it's got mRNA, it's got antibiotics, it's got histamines. They bulk them up on, stuff like grain instead of being grass fed and grass finished, so on and so forth. So
we do that too.
Well, no, I know we do
that crap. So
I know we do, but these guys don't use any of that. Everything it's not.
They're a much higher quality product.
So what I did, Jeff, is I went to them and I said, could you do something if we brought you a whole bunch of people to buy at once, like some sort of group buy, bulk buy sort of thing?
Right.
And they said, yes. So here's the deal for y'all out there. There's a limited amount of stock. It is really, really hard to find 100% American beef with none of the baloney that I just covered. I have zero financial stake in this. I have no dog in the hunt whatsoever. If you send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com and just put something in the title that says bulk food buy Carnival, whatever, I am going to pass all of those email addresses on to Carnival, and I'm done at that point. I don't need your email addresses. I have over 1 million addresses on my email list, so I'm not harvesting emails. You're not going to get any spam. It's going to go to Carnival. They're going to turn around and send you instructions on how you can participate and get the very best price on beef, well, chicken and pork as well, with a 25-year lifespan. And also, towards the end here, I'm going to give you guys some links. Wasatch Wagyu has some strips that they're blowing out. It's 50% off, but you can use our 20% off coupon on top of that. And they're almost giving the stuff away, and I'll put it out there later. But for the time being, if you want in on the Carnival stuff, send an email. I'll pass it on. And if it goes over well and they have enough stock, maybe they'll do it again. But right now, this is a one-time deal. You got until about Saturday morning to get an email to me, and then I'm going to forward it all off to them. And hopefully everybody gets, fat and enjoys their Carnival steak. So, Jeff, let's get into the main topic here tonight of the, it threw me off because we're on segment number 4 because I had 3. I was going, holy crap, I'm on the wrong part of my notes. I'm not actually. So we'll call it segment number 4 because that's what it really is tonight. And it's how the digital pipeline converts passive consumers into active threats. So, or converts, I should say. Well, no, golly, look at that. How the digital pipeline converts passive consumers into active threats. Say it 3 times fast. So with that being said, we are now down to 17 episodes left in the Long War series. Everything from here on is going to be laser focused. Like last night, all we did was talk about covert communications. Tonight, Jeff and I are going to talk about this radicalization pipeline that I would have never imagined they'd be so effective. Did you, Jeff? They have taken things to a whole new level. Recruiting's gone on for a long time, right? But it's a science now.
But okay, let's simplify it. It's marketing.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, we sold people rocks, pet rocks.
We did. I had one.
And people bought them. Okay, now let's look at Beanie Babies from the 90s. Okay, they were a cheap beanbag toy that cost about probably 50 cents to make. And they created a mania, and people were spending thousands of dollars for a rare Beanie Baby. And it's just marketing. You convince people this is what they need, or this will solve their problems. And, hey, you're bored? Have a Coke. It's fizzy. It'll perk you up. Or, you don't have friends, go on Facebook. We'll give you friends. It's all freaking marketing. It's always been marketing. So you find some lonely dude who has no life, no girlfriend, no prospects, and you say, you know what? Come with us. We'll give you everything that life won't, but that you want. And if you don't get it in this life, you'll get it in the next. We'll give you 72 virgins.
Yeah.
And you'll be remembered. People will know your name. We'll put posters up of you. They do this in Palestine all the time. Guy blows himself up. They slap posters all over the place. So the next guy they want to recruit says, look at Abdul. Everybody knows who he is. His poster's on every building. That could be you.
Let me ask you a question about that, actually, Jeff. I'm trying to remember who told me this. Apologies, I can't give them credit for it. They said that it might have even been you for that matter, that when they recruit these kids overseas, not our kids here, and they tell them what you just said, they also tell them that they will compensate their family. But then once you blow yourself up, the family doesn't get, 2 nickels to rub together. Is that true? Is that a thing?
Yeah, they do. They do promise we'll take care of your family thing.
Okay.
And if you got and most of these guys who kill themselves are not the firstborn sons. They're usually second or third. Okay. Firstborns inherit stuff. Second and thirds are pretty much on their own. So what they're doing is they'll say, this is how you can, a lot of times these kids feel guilty because they're not able to take care of their mom and dad or their younger siblings. So they say, you do this, we'll give 10 grand to your family. And you got to realize, Like in Afghanistan, the average annual income, at least when I was there in 2002, was $200, $220 a year. So you offer somebody, 10 grand, that's like 50 years salary. And you say, we'll give you 10, we'll give your family 10 grand. And they have fulfilled that social duty of taking care of their family by blowing themselves up.
That's crazy, isn't it? So,
yeah, it is.
So anyway, but the focus of this segment in particular is that they've refined this radicalization model to the point where it's no longer like a physical handler, coaching somebody through the process. It's all digital. It's all online. It's 24/7, 365. It's extremely polished. Like when you look at the Inspire magazine, it's as polished as any other magazine that you can think of.
And who started Inspire magazine?
I don't know, but ISIS puts their name on it. But who started?
Yeah, but it was an ISIS guy. I can't remember his name now because we killed him. He was born in New Mexico. He grew up in the United States. He understood magazines and marketing and all that crap.
Well, check this out. This is a recent edition of it. Let me get you on stage. Sorry, Jeff. There's a recent edition on it. I'm trying to remember what the date was on this.
I want to say his name was maybe it's Alawaki.
This is
him.
Yeah, check this out. This is present right in the bottom corner.
Yeah.
Spring 2026.
Yeah.
And that's one of the guys in Australia. Yeah. And
it's like Time magazine or People magazine for terrorists.
Yeah.
And Alawaki, there was a big controversy if it's him. If I got the name wrong, I apologize. Because he was born in the United States, he was a U.S. citizen, and they drone striked his ass. And people are like, "Oh, you murdered an American," and I'm like, "Yeah, who gives a shit on that one?"
Check this.
He's a senior Al Qaeda guy. Who gives a shit?
I'm not going any further on that one because that'll get us a.
Oh yeah, you'll get a strike. Oh, this is like the anarchist cookbook from the '60s, except it's modern.
We'll avoid that one. So anyway, at the end of the day, for everybody watching, ISIS in particular, but Al Qaeda is on this as well, and even the IRGC, who's typically recruited people in person for Hamas and Hezbollah and whatnot, but they've got essentially a funnel. It's a marketing funnel, basically. Yeah. So those of you who aren't into marketing, what a marketing funnel is you try to find ways to get people into the top of the funnel, and then you give them reasons to go down to the bottom of the funnel. And when they get to the bottom of the funnel, the expectation is that they'll buy something from you. So they're absolutely using the same demand generation activities any marketer would use these days. And you've got a bunch of, disenfranchised kids here in America, especially Islamic ones, who also carry grievance with them because their parents have told them to hate the great Satan. So they're particularly vulnerable to this sort of stuff. But this is crazy. I want you to comment on this, Jeff, before I go to the next point afterwards. The timeline from first exposure to operational readiness has collapsed from an average of 16 months in 2002 to a matter of weeks today, driven entirely by digital acceleration. And law enforcement hasn't kept track of that. So 2002, these guys aren't recruiting people online. They're doing it the old-fashioned way.
Face to face.
Yeah. But now they're doing it digital. And I mean, we know that some people have been radicalized to the point from first contact to attack under 30 days.
Yeah.
And what in your purview has changed as far as law enforcement is concerned?
Law enforcement is having a hard time keeping up because it used to be when it was, mano a mano, I would meet you and, maybe we'd have lunch, we'd go to the hookah bar, we'd do whatever. And that's when I would do it. But then when we were done, I would leave, you would leave, and maybe you went home, maybe you had a job, you had stuff you had to do. And then I'd say, okay, I'll see you again in a week because, it just wasn't, physically possible for us to get together every day, all the time. Well, if you're doing it online, you can catch the guy every night, because he's at home, he's not doing anything, he doesn't have to go out anywhere or spend money. You just catch him when he's online. And so you could have a meeting a day with this guy just you. And then you might turn it over to somebody else who says, hey, I'm a friend of Abdul's. He says, hey, let's chat. And you have another person engage him. So he might be basically, instead of drip, 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 it's a freaking fire hose. Every time he gets online, there's somebody there, maybe even it could be the same person, just masquerading as multiple people. And say, oh, I understand you're a friend of Abdul's. I'm his friend Anwar. And boy, he really helps me out, man. I was in the same boat and now I'm happy. And it's the same guy pretending.
Well, it's even worse than that now. They're no surprise. They're using AI bots.
Sure.
And the person who's being radicalized thinks they're actually talking to somebody when they're not.
Well, how many guys, I'm in love with this girl, I'm going to marry her. I've never actually met her, but I met her online. And here's this picture of this gorgeous woman. And I look like a toad. But no, she loves me and I'm sending her money. It's the exact same thing. But instead of sending money, I'm going to blow myself up.
That's just crazy, isn't it?
People are stupid. They believe what they want to believe because we have raised a couple of generations of people who have no concept of what reality really is. Think of all the internet scams that you see out there. They all play on that idea that people think they're smart, they think they can't be fooled, and that, and they see something that's too good to be true. We used to say if it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
But they look at it as this, oh, I've earned this, or someone's finally recognizing my skill, my worth, my intelligence. No, you're just an idiot.
Yeah. So we mentioned last night the concept of platform hopping, which, Al Qaeda and ISIS do. And one of the things I had in the brief for tonight is, what platforms are being utilized as vectors? The answer is all of them.
Yeah.
But what they're typically trying to do is recruit people on, Instagram, Facebook, X, wherever they can, but they try to drive them typically towards Telegram is where they want them to land.
Well, they want an encrypted site eventually so they can be more open about what they're saying. If you're on a site that's not encrypted and you start saying, here's how you make a bomb, you're going to get caught up in keyword searches from NSA and FBI. But if you move into an encrypted system, you can be more direct.
Yeah. And there's been a lot kicked off of Discord, by the way. So that's the other place they like to drive people, Discord and Telegram. Here's an interesting side to that, though, Jeff. And let me pick your brain on this. So Pavel Durov, the Russian, he writes Telegram. He escapes Russia. He gets whatever you want to call it, safe refuge in France. He releases Telegram. It gets popular amongst certain crowds. He's making money. And then Macron tricks him into coming for dinner one night and arrests him and says, you either give us full back-end access to your app or we're going to put you in prison for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And this goes on for a couple of weeks. And then magically Pavel Durov is released. We know that the DSA is in effect, the Digital Safety Act in Europe. So they all have, the EU has access to Telegram. Give me your perspective on this though, Jeff. What do they actually have for resources today versus what they had 25 years ago, since they've stripped away like law enforcement, intelligence, all those things have gone by the wayside? I think that they're laughing at the Europeans' faces by saying, yeah, you might have access to Telegram, but you don't have the resources.
If they have AI, they don't need the human resources. They don't need, NSA used to have thousands of people who could read Arabic and speak Arabic, when they would get some SIGINT, and they could have people who would sit there and, they could listen to it and decrypt it and write down, this is what they're saying. Well, now with a lot of the AI, you don't need that many people. You can do it electronically. And that's, they still can go through it. Now, you still need people to act on it. You say, okay, I've got this guy over here, I've got, Omar over here who's planning an attack. And then you got to have someone to hand it to. Someone's got to be able to go out and do something about it.
Well, like, just hold on a second. Reality check here. all of the European countries, with very few exceptions, like Hungary, Poland immediately comes to mind, they're not only not doing anything against this weaponized migration and terrorism stuff, they're welcoming it.
Well, except for Poland and Hungary. Yeah. They want the immigration, they don't want the terrorism, but you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's
politically incorrect to go after Muslims in France.
Oh, big time.
That's their problem.
Canada just passed a law that if you cite anything from the Christian Bible, you go to jail. Yeah, you go to jail because it's hateful towards Muslims.
Well, Finland, they charge a freaking member of parliament with a hate crime because she quoted the Bible.
Yep. For those of you who don't believe this, that is a true story, what Jeff just said there. You should look it up if you don't believe it. And again, but that stuff happens there, and then they end up bringing it to us over here, which is, it's a crystal ball. It's a harbinger of things to come. So just fill in the blanks for me here, Jeff, if there are any, as far as the profile of a susceptible target. So in my opinion, the susceptible target is either a very disenfranchised young man who wants to, make a mark, or it's somebody who's in one of these Arabic families who, has this grievance towards the United States and is perfectly happy to blow people up and get their 72 virgins and blah, 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 blah. Is there anything else in there that I'm missing, like as far as what a profile might look like?
You could get someone who's very pious, someone who is, someone who is who believes the Quran word for word, 100% literally, because there's a lot in the Quran that someone can use to say, well, the Quran says this, and so you should go do that. And you can do that with, basically any ancient text. You can do that with the Bible too. But if you get someone who, it's like if you wanted someone, if you were trying to find someone to go out and, okay, I'm going to say this, I don't believe it, but say you want to go out, okay, kill homosexuals. You could find a very pious Muslim who can quote the Quran and say, Allah says, or it doesn't have to be a pious Muslim, someone who knows the Quran says, Allah says you should kill these people. And then you find some pious, young, very pious Muslim guy who believes that, the Quran word for word. And he goes, you're absolutely right. We should go kill these people. You can also you could do the same thing in Christianity. If you said you found someone who's believes the Bible word for word, no matter what, you can pull scripture from Leviticus where it says you don't lie with a man as you do with a woman. But then they say, well, that's God's word, and they're going against God's word. So if they're going against God's word, it only makes sense that we should kill them. You know what? You're absolutely right. We should. You can use it to convince people because it almost goes from critical thinking to emotional thinking. And once you can get them to ignore the critical and go with the emotional, that's half the battle right there.
Are you familiar with Simon Sinek and his start with your why? For anybody who's not familiar with this, go look up Simon Sinek, look up his 17-minute TED Talk on people's why and how the greatest, let's say, leaders or charismatic people always start with what they do, not why they do what they do. So I can give you a couple examples here. Like when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he didn't get up there and say, extol all these virtues of computers. He got up and he said, we think differently at Apple, and we want to change the world. We want to make the world a better place. And we recognize that you think differently and you want to change the world. And we want to empower you to achieve that goal with technology. And so if you buy these spiffy new Mac products, you will be empowered to make the world a better place, essentially, right?
And who doesn't want to make the world better?
Versus somebody like HP. This is the new HP Pavilion. It's got a 3.2 gigahertz CPU, 4 terabytes of storage, 128 gigabytes of RAM. You want to buy one? I mean, it doesn't work, right? So what I'm getting at is that Simon Sinek says approximately 2% of people tell you why they do what they do. Everybody can tell you what they do. Most people can tell you how they do it. Virtually nobody tells you why they do what they do. So I'm oversimplifying here, but the perimeter of the human brain is the neocortex. And then there's two pieces in the middle that's called the limbic brain. And here's the crazy thing. The limbic brain doesn't process, let's say, speeds and feeds, numbers, and words and all that stuff. That's done through the neocortex. But here's what the limbic brain does do. The limbic brain controls your emotions and feelings, and it's where all of your decisions are made. So somebody decides to do something, Jeff, like I say to you, gee, Jeff, why did you do that? And I know you of all people would always have a good reason, but if you answered and said, you know what, Chris, it just felt like the right thing to do, that's the limbic brain on display when you see people doing that, right? So people who are really, really good at marketing realize that if you tweak somebody emotionally, that's when you're going to get the best conversion. So let me just give you like a really quick set of numbers here. 2015, we surpassed 1 million words in the English language. The average fifth grader has a vocabulary of 700 words. Out of the 170 words, approximately 170 words are power words that evoke emotion, okay? So I had a meeting this one time with somebody. It was a business development gig. It was a national gig. They told me their story, and I did this on purpose. And I said, boy, y'all should just sign my contract here. We'll get to work right away. We'll beat the pants off them. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, well, you don't want to sign my contract? And she was like, well, that wasn't very compelling. I said, okay, Teresa, how about this? How about sign my contract today? We'll get to work right away and we will crush your competitor. And she's like, ooh, I like the sounds that much better. Crush is one of the 170 power words, right? And that's, it's how marketing manipulates people because it punches you in the gut. It makes you feel emotion, and that's where you make your decisions.
Well, okay. Let's go back to marketing. And that's what this recruiting is marketing. Coca-Cola, have a Coke and a smile.
Right.
It doesn't tell you what Coke tastes like. Doesn't tell you that it's got caffeine. It's going to perk you up. It just says have a Coke and a smile. Okay, McDonald's, old McDonald's. You deserve a break today. So get out and get away to McDonald's. It was like McDonald's was the treat that you deserve. Not that you want to pay for, not that it's going to fill your stomach, not that it tastes good, because you deserve it. You deserve a break today. And those marketing, those little hooks, they work.
Well, they absolutely work.
And, when Ford came out with the Mustang, they didn't say, here is a small, 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder, engine car they sold like the California beach lifestyle. You want to be a beach boy, you want to be fun, you want to have a good time, you get the Mustang, you get the T-Bird, It was all, and it goes the other way too. Cadillacs and Lincolns were basically, you have arrived. You are successful. You need to show the world how successful you are. Buy a Cadillac, buy a Lincoln Continental, buy an Oldsmobile 98. That's how they sold luxury cars. It wasn't that the car was great and it was comfortable, which a lot of them were, but it was, you need to show everybody else how successful you are. Well, the terrorists do it was, you need to show everybody else how committed you are to Allah and Islam. You killed yourself for Allah. Right. That makes you more pious than everybody else.
There you go. This is the Simon Sinek video. It's all over the internet, but how great leaders inspire. I just put a link in all the live chats. If you're interested in the psychology of getting people to do things that you're trying to get them to do, it's a fantastic, it's only 17 minutes. It's a fantastic speech.
Actually, I wanted to say something. When I was being recruited for the CIA, and this was back in 1989, I had an interview. And my job at the time, I ran a bar. And I'm an engineer, and I thought they would be impressed with the fact that I'm an engineer. They didn't give a shit. The guy said, because I was, applying for a job to be a case officer. And the guy said, have you ever had to convince somebody to do something that was not in their best interest? And I went, yeah, all the time. I said, I've got guys coming up that are drunk and belligerent. I'm convincing them to leave the bar without starting a fight, and my interview ended up being 2 hours of bar stories. And I thought, well, I didn't get that job. And then a couple of weeks later, hey, we'd like to make you an offer. I'm like, okay. Now, later on, when I realized what case officers did, it made sense to me. But at the time, I had no clue. And I was like, okay, that's really kind of weird. But you're convincing someone to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. And killing yourself is something you wouldn't otherwise do. Otherwise, you'd already be dead. But you've got to have that ability to convince people to do that.
Yep. Well said. Well said. So at the last part of segment 4 here, I had down, what's the most effective thing that platforms could do to disrupt this pipeline, and why haven't they done it? Well, here's the deal coming from big tech here is that, again, they use all of the regular mainstream media or social media to basically reel them in and move them over to a platform where they can talk all the nuts and bolts. Well, what they don't talk about doing all the terrorist things on a Facebook group or X groups or anything like that. They just recruit them there and say, hey, well, come on over here and check out this thing we have on Telegram. So there's nothing that the mainstream media or mainstream social media could do that would be wildly effective from a technology perspective, because people are all the time are going to be saying, hey, Jeff, have you seen this product at, xyz.com? Check it out. That's no different as far as a computer is concerned, and somebody saying, hey, meet me over on this other channel sort of thing. So
plus they jump from platform to platform to platform. So if you shut it down on Facebook, they're going to go somewhere else. And there are so many platforms you'll never catch them all.
Well, and we touched on it last night. Not only that, they will start a conversation on one platform, continue it on another platform, continue it on another platform, so that there's no context,
and then do it on a video gaming platform. They can.
So, I mean, it's sophisticated, and there is no easy way for tech to, basically stay on top of that. So segment 5 is the youth radicalization surge, which we've already touched on, pardon me, and teenagers as new frontline threat. So in 2025, the majority of ISIS-linked plots, some attacks, but mostly plots, inside the United States were actually carried out by younger people, some as young as 13 that they caught. But it's these disaffected teenagers whose parents are all too happy to let them go and play video games or do whatever and not have to waste their time parenting them. It's a terrible, horrible thing, right? To all the stuff that's going on. But the pattern is pretty consistent here for all y'all. It's really consistent. It's young males, socially isolated, spending heavy time in online spaces, and they get pulled progressively deeper and deeper into this jihadi ecosystem. And it includes everything. It's not just Telegram. It's not just Discord. It's TikTok. It's encrypted messaging platforms. So WhatsApp, we know for a fact Europeans have access to WhatsApp. They've had it ever since Charlie 19, but they don't monitor it. They don't have the resources to monitor it, and the bad guys know it, so they keep on using it, basically. So at the end of the day, the recently released 2026 DNI annual threat assessment, it actually names teenage Islamic extremists or radicalized teenagers as the fastest growing threat to the homeland here. And we've been talking about it ad nauseum for a while. Tonight is just the focus on the actual levers that are being used to get them there. So why would you reckon that they're the most valuable target beyond the stuff we've already covered? Is it because they're, that easily manipulated?
Well, okay, they're naive, they're young, they don't have life experience.
Good point.
But the other one is they don't have criminal records either. And you think about someone who's 25 and he's been busted for throwing Molotov cocktails at a protest or something like that. He's on the radar. He's got a record. He's on somebody's list somewhere of, having either direct or indirect ties to some, to a terrorist organization. But if he's 16, and a lot of times when a 16-year-old, at least in Western culture, they get in trouble, it's sealed. And when they turn 18, it's like it never happened. And so they don't have, they're not on the radar. And because they're young, and let's be honest. Okay, what does a 16-year-old boy have that all 16-year-old boys have? Raging hormones.
Yeah.
They've discovered sex, but they're not having sex. And if someone says 72 virgins, they're susceptible to that.
Yeah, big time. I mean, you actually just hit on something there. I mean, I'm getting this impression that basically, if you wanted to look like for one common thread for all of these kids or youngins that are being converted, is some element of social isolation.
Yeah.
That seems to be the common thread, regardless of demographics, regardless of, Christian home, Muslim home, whatever. So,
well, and look at COVID, where kids couldn't go to school, so they didn't have that kind of interaction. Everything shut down. The places they would go hang out were shut down. All they had was the internet, and talk about fertile hunting ground for a terrorist recruiter.
Yeah. I had a question at the top of my head, and I'm trying to think best way to say it, but it'll come back to me. I'll circle back to that. Oh, I know what it was. You drove us right into it. What effect did Charlie 19 isolating people actually have on this whole radicalization process? It seems to me that it was an accelerant.
Yeah, it just poured gas on the fire. I mean, teenagers today, and I'm not an expert on them, but I've had kids and grandkids. People, they seek out human interaction. And people today, it is more times than not, before the internet, you went to sporting events, you went to a bar, you did some outdoor activity or where other people were, and that's how you met people. Now they sit at home behind their computer screen, much like you and I are doing right now, and that's their interaction. And Charlie 19, it shut down what little real world stuff there was. The whole thing, go out and touch grass. People couldn't play softball in the park. They couldn't play basketball, in the street corner. They couldn't even hang out in front of a hookah bar smoking, smoking tobacco, because everything was shut down. And so the internet and their computers not only became their primary outlet, it became their only outlet.
Yeah.
That in church, because you notice they shut down churches, they didn't shut down mosques.
Give me your thoughts, Jeff, on the difference of radicalizing a teenager, let's say 16 years old, versus radicalizing somebody who's like 30, 35, 40 years old. I'm trying to remember how old the guy was in New Orleans that was from, I want to say he was like Beaumont, Texas area.
Oh, he's from Houston area. I'm not sure how old he was. But the thing also, though, when you get someone who's older, say they're 30, 35, but for lack of a better word, they're a failure in life. If maybe they've been married and their wife left them, so they're a failure as a husband. Maybe they're a failure as a father. That's a susceptibility. Maybe they had a job, but they lost their job, and so their career goals are kind of a failure. Or they're here from another country, so they don't have the family. They don't have a family touchstone. They don't have something to go back to there, because all their family's back in wherever the hell they're from, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, wherever. So they're socially isolated. They may be financially isolated because they've lost their job. They're sexually isolated because maybe their wife left them or their girlfriend left them, and they have nothing. And so they're seeking something to fill that void. And these recruiters step right in and say, I'll be your friend.
Yeah. So that guy in New Orleans was 42 years old.
Okay.
So
I bet his life wasn't perfect, was it? He wasn't happily married with a passel of kids and a good job.
He was not married. I don't think he even had a girlfriend. He was living in a trailer, like I say, somewhere around Beaumont. And I think his whole yard and his trailer were just shambles, right?
Yeah.
I have this vague recollection that he had chickens on his property. I could be wrong about that, but either way, just a
That's
quick.
Mike Sterling.
There you go. Yeah. So Thomas, a while ago, maybe 45 minutes ago, asked how my watch is doing tonight, and let's just say it's on mute. Okay. I mean, I respect Michael Yon's, his story as far as all the things he's done in the dangerous situations, but a lot of people at his level mentally have a problem because they want to get all this information out as fast as they can. And again, it turns into drinking from a fire hose. So I was really glad to see Jeff. And in that regard, I'm not speaking poorly of Michael. It's tough to keep up with that stuff. That's all. So with that being said, let's go back.
What you're saying is I'm not smart enough to be a guard, to be a fire hose. I get that. That's okay.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the exact opposite. You're smart to that level without turning on the fire hose. Let's back up to the teenagers again, though. 16 years old. What are the changes in behavior parents should be looking for that would suggest, we better pay a little bit closer attention to what Johnny's doing?
Well, it's breaks in the pattern. If they have a group of friends and then they leave those friends behind. If they have activities they do, hobbies they do, sporting events they follow, if they're big baseball fans and all of a sudden they quit, or they're big soccer fans and now they don't care about soccer anymore. So you're looking at things that were big parts of their lives that now suddenly just kind of go away. Because a person with active outside interests, a group of good friends, is not a very good recruitment target. Now, that's not to say that if one of their friends gets recruited, he may recruit them as well. But those are rare instances. But so you're looking for changes in established patterns, because you don't go from a happy, well-adjusted kid to killing yourself without there being some signs of that.
I'm thinking like a couple things immediately. Potentially changes in apparel and clothing.
Yeah. He's going to emo. Okay.
Yeah. Like just trying to mimic, these people. Off the cuff comments, because as you said, they're naive and young and don't realize that when they say certain things that adults are going to perk up and go, what'd you just say?
Yeah.
They should at the very least. Myself, again, I'm tech guy, systems and network engineer. In this day and age, I would have pretty much bulletproof protections in place at the edge of the network to monitor what they're doing. And so not just an outright ban, because you can ban stuff and then people will find a way around it. If you don't ban it, but you capture the packets, it's called packet sniffing, and then you search on specific things, well, you'll find out what your youngins are getting into. And at that point, now you can make some smart decisions.
Yeah, but most people don't have that technical capability either.
They don't. That's why I said as a systems engineer, that's precisely what I would do. And all these apps, like Protect Your Children app, blah, 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 like these nanny apps, they're not going to protect your child. What happens is your child tries to go to access something and it pops up and says, well, you're blocked. Okay. Well, the first thing these kids are going to do is they're going to go to a website that operates as a proxy where they can punch in the URL on a website, and that website goes and fetches the information, but keeps it inside of its container. So as far as the app is concerned, now your child's just at some website. It doesn't have anything to do with anything, sort of thing, right? And they'll get into VPNs, and there's multiple ways. You got to monitor and then take action, not just take blanket action.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're almost at the end of this. The whole thing of changing segments around screwed me up. But segment number 5. Here's the other part to it, Jeff. I'd like to hear your comments on this. I mean, there is the potential that as these kids are being radicalized, that they start crossing some legal lines, including legal lines online and not just, in the real world sort of thing. I think that if you don't put some measures in place ahead of time, I mean, look, if your kid's the captain of the football team and he's got all kinds of girls hanging off his arm, I don't think you have to worry about him being radicalized too much. So like Jeff said, it's the isolated kids, right? But if you had an isolated kid who's in the basement playing on his computer and phone 24/7, 365, you should have something monitoring what they're doing. If you can't do it yourself because you're not a systems engineer, go to any computer shop is going to have somebody that's going to give you something that's better than nothing. But Jeff, off the top of your head, what would be some of the things that would be against the law that a teenager would potentially get into?
Well, guns and explosives.
Yeah.
If you have a 16-year-old and all of a sudden he's trying to figure out how to acquire a weapon or how to, hey, Dad, have you ever made nitroglycerin? And I hate to say it, online you can get videos on how to make nitroglycerin. It's very easy, and how to make gunpowder and all sorts of things. But when he starts showing interest, he or she, but mostly he, starts showing interest in things that have dangerous applications. If you have him, if he's trying to, come up with a low-grade explosive, but he wants to build, you get a mason jar and you put an explosive charge in the middle and you surround it with nuts and bolts and nails and tacks. That kind of stuff. I mean, and I was a kid, I used to make gunpowder and we used to burn holes through my dad's workbench and stuff like that because we just had a chemistry set and that's what we did. But we weren't trying to kill anybody. We were just being obnoxious kids.
Right.
But if they start, if you see them tying that to interest in this case, Islam, if your family is Catholic or your family is Baptist, and all of a sudden you have one kid who's showing having an interest in other religions is not a bad thing. But if they start obsessing about it, and if he starts reading the Quran, great. But then if he starts wearing Middle Eastern attire and things like that, it's like, you're going a little bit beyond just a curiosity. So then you want to find out, okay, who are they talking to? Where did they get this idea? Is this from a friend at school? Did they meet somebody online? And because people who kill themselves for Allah consider themselves to be martyrs and pious Muslims. And that means they're going to start living the Muslim life, or at least on the surface. Your kid quits, he loved bacon. Now he quits eating bacon. It's like,
it just dawned on me that with all the crap that's been going on in our society with these liberal teachers, calling children by their fake pronouns and stuff, right, and then hiding it from the parents, right? So
what if a Muslim did that and he was recruiting them?
Yeah. I'm just thinking that it's highly possible for some of these disenfranchised kids that they present one picture at home and another at school because they want to be the cool kid. Look, I'm into the whole Hamas thing, blah, 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 blah.
And the schools will not tell the parents that, hey, oh, by the way, Johnny now calls himself Muhammad.
Yep.
And he prays 5 times a day.
And I mean, you're right. Like the schools, most of them are probably not going to tell you anything about that. So my recommendation in that would be surveillance. I would suspicions. I would surveil the kids from the time that they left the house till they get back. And, usually where there's smoke, there's fire, right? But let's get into this final segment, which is actually a few case studies, what domestic radicalization, golly, actually looks like in the real world. I worked until 20 after 1 this morning. Then I was up 4 hours later. I'm running on fumes here. But anyway, operational case studies, what domestic radicalization looks like in the real world. So March of this year, Last month you got Gracie Mansion, the IED incident where the kid had made this bomb and tried to kill Jake Lang, and thankfully it didn't go off. The funniest part of that, Jeff, and I'm sure you saw it, was the whacked out liberal with the bullhorn saying, "We don't want ICE in our streets. We want our immigrants and everything." And this freaking Muslim terrorist kid comes right up behind him, chucks the thing, and you look at the face on the liberal. He's like, you turn his head around. I mean, it couldn't have been more. The timing was perfect. If basically point out, you dumb son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And he would have been killed probably if the dang thing had gone off. But anyway, so you've got that. You've got the New Year's Eve grocery store attack that happened in North Carolina. They were both traced back to the exact same radicalization pipeline, by the way. There were no foreign handlers. It was 100% digital recruitment. And these were born and raised here in America, but they converted ready to kill other Americans. I mean, it's crazy. Then you got the ODU guy, the Old Dominion University guy, who, he gets charged and convicted of supporting ISIS, and they let him out of prison after 8 years. And somehow he ends up getting a gun. He goes right back to his ISIS roots. He wasn't from here. What was he from? Senegal, I think.
Yeah, I think Senegal.
Right?
Correctly.
This whole thing of these judges letting, these bad guys go scot-free. There was somewhere today, Jeff, I bookmarked it, and I can't remember what the city was, but it was like some guy who's got something like 130 charges against him over many, many years. They let him out on his own recognizance today.
Well, there was a woman who stabbed a pregnant woman as she loaded groceries into her car in a parking lot.
Saw that.
Stabbed her in the chest with a steak knife, and she'd been arrested like 73 times before that.
It's purposeful. This isn't mistakes. This is purposefully, it's being done on purpose too. But anyway, so you've got the first one, you got a couple teenagers radicalized online. You got the second one where this guy came from out of the country, actually served in our military, got charged and convicted of providing material support to ISIS. Then he goes and kills an ROTC instructor. He would have killed more if a couple of brave students in that class hadn't taken him out. But I mean, if you look at the 2026 DNI assessment, none of this stuff is like isolated on the fringe. It's coming in from the fringe is what I'm trying to say. It's not way out there anymore. It's happening more and more frequently. And there's nothing in that DNI report, by the way, that I saw that instructs people on how to counteract this. So I think we've kind of beat it to death. But if you have anything else you want to add as far as, how we counteract it, I've got no further idea.
Well, okay, this is going to be against all this. Oh, my personal space. When your kids at school go through the room, look at all their crap. If you can get on their computer, look at their history, look at where they've been going, look at who they've been talking to.
Good point.
I'm sorry, kids don't have those kind of rights. I mean, if you find Playboy's under his mattress, that's a good thing. That's just normal. But if you find Inspire magazine under his mattress, you got a problem.
Let's sit on Inspire for a second here. Is that magazine actually released in dead tree format, or is it pretty much
used to be? I don't know that it is now. I doubt it. It's probably all electronic. But you look at his history, you look at his caches, you look at everything on his computer. And again, if he's got naked pictures of Sydney Sweeney, he's just normal.
Yeah.
If he's got execution videos from Al Qaeda or something like that, he's not.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely great example there. I don't know. I'm just looking at my notes on the side here, and my eyes keep going back to the ODU one where you've got a guy who's convicted and you let him out early. Here's the question for you on that, Jeff. Not the system side of it, but the individual side of it. What do you reckon the recidivism rate is of anybody who's convicted of anything terrorist related?
It's got to be high. It's probably not as high as child molesters because I think they're just I think you could there is a chance to recover someone, especially if they're young. Kids do stupid shit. I mean, we've all done things that we did at 16 that we don't do at 36 because we grew up. You may break some windows and do crap like that, a little vandalism that you don't do as an adult because that was just youthful stupidity. And there are some people who do it. But if you become a terrorist at 35, you're broken. That's.
I would say that if you have anybody who's convicted of providing material support to terrorists and you lock him up for part of his sentence and you let him out early, the chances of recidivism, I would say, are probably extremely high.
Very high.
I don't think you turn that around. I like think in terms of people like Jeffrey Dahmer. All of them started down the same path with abusing animals, killing animals, torturing animals, and then it escalated from there. I mean, I grew up, there was a kid in middle school, Ricky Gervais, and he ended up in juvie because he was pouring gasoline on cats and setting them on fire and thought it was funny as hell, right? So, many years later, somebody tells me, oh, yeah, did you hear about Ricky Gervais? I'm like, no, I haven't heard that name in decades, right? And they're like, yeah, so apparently, like 20 years ago, he went to prison because he raped some 70, 80-year-old woman on the street corner, and they let him out, and he was out for 48 hours, and he did it again, and he's back. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you even let somebody like that out? There's no reforming people like that.
No.
Doesn't happen. But at the end of the day, all of these ones that we've seen, whether they pulled the plot off or didn't pull the plot off, like ODU, New York, Gracie Mansion, New Orleans, New Year's Eve, et cetera, they all share one thing though, and it's all online digital radicalization. Yeah. So at least we know where to look. It's not physically them going to somewhere and being recruited. It's online recruitment. It's not easy, but that's something that we can at least focus on, if nothing else. Give me your assessment, Jeff, your crystal ball. What happens to domestic radicalization processes and the threat essentially over the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, I think it continues. What you will use is you'll use the war in Iran. They will use the war in Iran as a, see, we told you so, or look at these poor people, or, they'll just use it as a cause celeb to push their agenda. And everybody does that, if you're selling home security systems, you use every burglary in the neighborhood to sell more home security systems.
Yeah.
Look, again, it's marketing. They're going to do the same thing. See what happened? This is exactly what we're talking about. But you can help prevent this by going after the great Satan or blowing yourself up or, whatever. You can stop the next one.
You can pretty much drive through any urban community and tell who's been broken into and who's not been broken into just by things like motion detector lights and, security signs saying they've got a system. And there's some other things as well. But then the people who don't have that are the prime targets. And then when they get hit, then they end up buying all that stuff. So
I've never been broken into, but I've got about a dozen security cameras around my house.
That's
every window on this house is covered by a security camera.
That's because you're smarter than the average bear, and plus your background. But at the end of the day, we don't have Randy tonight, so instead of playing the Carnival roar, we're just going to go right into the Carnival practical payoff. That I'm going to tell you all about the group buy stuff a little bit more, and Wasatch Wagyu, and then we'll put a lid on it for tonight. So when we get to the practical payoff each night, it's essentially one skill that y'all can concentrate on based on the topic, one item, and one mindset shift. Go ahead and pick one of the three, Jeff.
Well, in light of what we were just talking about, the mindset shift is don't kid yourself. It can happen to you and your family. And the other one is you got to stay on top of it. You've got to look, your kid, you may be convinced your kid is the most wonderful, normal kid in the world. He may be, but you know, it doesn't hurt to check. Check their computer, check their history, check what sites they go to. It's like what the pilots say, in God we trust, but everything else we check.
Yeah, good mindset shift. I was thinking something along the lines for that particular bucket, that this is not something that just happens overseas. This is not something that happens in other countries. It's happening now in America, and a lot of people don't have their heads wrapped around that. I would say from a skill perspective would be, and we talk about this frequently as far as situational awareness is concerned, raise your awareness level as far as your youngins are concerned, and learn to recognize behavioral changes, like some progression of radicalization, all the things that Jeff and I already mentioned. You know, don't think to yourself, oh, he's just going through a phase. No, it's highly likely that somebody's putting some pretty crappy thoughts in their head. And for an item, Jeff, I didn't really have a whole lot of ideas on an item for this earlier. So the best thing I came up with was basically save the FBI tip line. And there's a reason I say that. It sounds kind of corny, but, and it's 1-800-CALL-FBI, by the way, that a lot of these, and I don't know what the number is, I suppose we could look it up, but a lot of these plots that were disrupted in advance were disrupted because somebody called the FBI tip line. And we beat the FBI up so on a regular basis. But if you got a legit tip to offer, it's.
And just real quick, for the people who think it can't happen to me, remember John Walker Lind? He was the kid, an American, got radicalized, ended up with the Taliban, and was at College Junggi when Mike Spann was killed. He didn't kill Mike Spann, but he was there. Yeah. He was an American. He was a normal American kid. Yeah, granted, he was from a leftist family, I think, but still, I mean, he wasn't, you know, some bloodthirsty screaming lunatic. He was a kid initially, was curious about Islam, and ended up being in the Taliban.
So, I mean, I've never been to the Middle East, but give me your thoughts on, I've heard a ton of people who've worked over there, whether it be intelligence, military, whatever, basically say that there's a characteristic that runs through all of these Middle Eastern countries where the majority of them will smile to your face while they're stabbing you in the back.
Yeah, they have in Islam, it's okay to lie to the infidel.
Right.
You know, in Western culture, it's not considered good to lie at all. And but there's also in Muslim culture, theirs is a shame-based society. We are a guilt-based society. And guilt is we do the right thing because we feel guilty if we do the wrong thing. It doesn't, you know, it's like they say, character is what you do when nobody's looking. In Islam, it's a shame-based society. You don't, and if you do the right thing, it's because you don't want people to see you do the wrong thing. But if you do the wrong thing and nobody sees you, that's okay. And that's why doing a polygraph against an Arab can be so problematic, because you know, you do a polygraph on an American, or especially a Catholic or someone who comes from a deeply religious background. You know, say you're asking, did you ever cheat on your wife? And if they did, they get that twinge of guilt because, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. It's adultery. I had a marriage before God, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Muslim will say, he's asking me, he obviously doesn't know. So if I tell him no, he doesn't know, I don't know, it's all good, because there's no shame, because he doesn't know I did it. That's why polys don't work as well on Arabs. If nobody knows you did wrong, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
That's crazy. I mean, I always think that, one of the key things is it's not what people do in your presence. It's what they do when they're not in your presence.
Yeah.
That tells you who they really are, sort of thing. But we go pretty deep in this stuff in our Guardians chat on the Element server that I built. For those of you who aren't members and you're considering it, it's only $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. We've got over 20 encrypted channels. We have an extremely robust community. I would say, well, last week was just over 15,000 messages split between 20 different channels. There's a lot of information, a lot of like-minded individuals. But beyond that, we have a bunch of people who don't participate in that, but they like the emergency alert. So the SDN system, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. So if you want to stay ahead of this stuff, it literally costs you 33 cents a day. And you'll get warnings, SHTF warnings that you won't get anywhere else. So with that being said, I want to go back to Carnival, Wasatch Wagyu before we wrap this up. For those of you who are rightfully so concerned of the food supply chain here in America, this stuff is tightening up faster than anybody imagined. I think I mentioned last night, Jeff, or the night before, there was some guy in Great Britain went to a grocery store. He was a reporter, and he was like, "Hey, check this out. Here's my receipt from last week, and this item was 3 pounds, $3, and this week it's 25 pounds." And that wasn't hyperbole; those were like real numbers. He's showing the receipts and stuff, right? That's coming here way faster than people realize. Number one, number two, you've got these megalomaniacs like Bill Gates, hell-bent and determined to poison all of us in every possible way imaginable. Yes, Carnival is a premium product. This is a premium product. It's 25-year shelf life. That's 6 ounces of beef with a 25-year shelf life. As I said, reconstitutes 5 to 10 minutes, a little bit of water, a little bit of salt. But they're good guys. They're true, real Americans. TM Randy Nance. I went to them a couple days ago. I said, could you do anything for the people who would like to stack up as far as some sort of discount if they bought in bulk? And then I said, well, wait a minute. What if a bunch of them team up and all come to you together and do a group bulk buy? They said, yeah, we can do something with the discount. Will depend on how many people actually want to jump on it, as well as how much stock they have or don't have. If you want in on that between now and Saturday, send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. Just say Carnival bulk buy, whatever you want part of it. I'm getting paid zero, zilch. There's no affiliate money for me in this. I wouldn't want it anyway, because I'm trying to help the community here in whatever way I possibly can. I'm going to take your email. I'm going to pass it on to Carnival. That'll be the end of my involvement. They will tell you how to take advantage of what they're going to offer. And at the end of the day, the more people who take advantage of it, the lower the prices will be. So support@survivaldispatch.com. Just put Carnival in there, and we'll get you all hooked up. Beyond that, Wasatch Wagyu. So let me show this. This is the bundle that they have on special right now, which is crazy for you guys. It's because we're the only ones who have a discount code SD20. Okay, so check this out. Regular price is $60. It's on sale for $30. You can use the SD20 on this and knock another $6 off and knock it down to $24, as opposed to paying $60 for that. And so I'm going to put this back in the live chat again. So support@survivaldispatch.com is for Carnival. Here's the Wasatch Wagyu one going out to everybody's live chat. SD20 is the discount code. Gets you 20% off. But when this one's gone, like what's it say? They've got 970 or something like that, 971 in stock. When that 971 is gone, it's gone forever. It's not coming back. So that's a great deal that you can jump on there if y'all are looking to stack up food, which you should be. I think that's basically it, Jeff. I think we got it all closed. We're going to be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. As per usual. Next episode, Long War Series, is actually going to be about target selection. So as I said, as we close in on the end of this 144 episode Long War Series, each episode from here on in has got a very tight focus. And tomorrow night, the focus is on how they select targets. And what's the saying, Jeff? Like you can't really defend yourself against your enemy unless you think like your enemy or something like that.
Yeah, you got to put yourself in their shoes, and you think, okay, what do they want to accomplish, and how would they best do it? You got to defend against a terrorist. You got to think like a terrorist. I hate to say it,
which is brutal, right? I mean, yeah. I've seen people get ripped off. Like I know one guy got him, like, I don't know what it was, $550,000 embezzled from him, right? And when the local newspaper went to interview him, they made him look like a complete idiot. They were like, how the F did you get, raped for $550,000? And he actually had a really good answer. He said, you know what? I don't think like a criminal. I've never thought like a criminal.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming because I didn't think anybody could be that, twisted sort of thing. So it's not easy. But anyway, at the end of the day, target selection is the topic tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. And again, if you want real-time intel instead of guessing, you want real-time survival and prepping information and tips and gear recommendations that have been tested, get inside the Survival Dispatch Guardian Network. Go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up, $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. It gets you 2 months for free. You get the emergency alerts, the whole 9 yards. And honestly, that's where everything that we do comes together on our Substack and our Element server. But that's it for tonight. Appreciate everybody out there. One last request. We're working with a YouTube account manager to try and fix the problems on our big channel. Do me a favor, whatever platform you're on, please turn on the notifications. There's something going on where out of 446,000 subscribers, they're telling me that only 27,000 people have notifications turned on. So please turn notifications on whatever platform. Beyond that, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless our law enforcement officers. God bless our military. God bless America.
Bless.
Brand new America. Brand new video for y'all tonight. We'll see y'all tomorrow.